Hello, welcome to day 26, and in today's lesson we're going to be building an app. Our application is going to be employee directory. In fact, let me show you what the finished product will look like. So our employee directory is going to look something like this. Now, if you're yet to watch the front end version where I taught how to create this employee directory, just check the video description. You'll see the front end as well. So if you want to check it out, why not just do that? But in the front end, what we're able to do is to display all of this statically. In other words, they can't change except you edit the markup itself. What backend languages allow you to do is to serve them dynamically, which means as user gets to be updated on the database, it gets to populate on the front end as well. And pretty much that's what we'll be doing. So instead of just having a static website, we're going to have a backend that is going to store all of our user data. Then we're going to be able to delete, we're going to be able to add, and we're going to be able to update. So that in programming is what we call CRUD. In other words, you can create, read, update, and delete. That's what we'll be using Django to do. And of course, it's not something you want to miss. At any point, you can always pause and try to review some sections, try to practice along. And if you have any question, do let me know. So let's dive into it. Now, to start writing our program, the structure of our program at the end is going to look similar to this, right? So we're going to have like the employee app, which will have the main, and we're going to see how we're going to achieve all of this all through. For us to get this started, I created a new folder inside my 30 days with Python. Now, inside the folder, the only thing we have is a README file. The README file contains this information that you are reading right now. So pretty much there's nothing inside of it. But how do we write Django application? Now, right now, our application or whatever we've been writing is not aware of Django, right? It's only aware of Python, and the reason why we can run all of these programs and we're able to see the results. When writing Django application, you need to actually install Django, or you need to create the app. And you also need to create a Python environment. Remember that when we tried to download Python, we saw several versions, right? You saw Python 3, you saw Python 2, you saw Python 3.10. I mean, so many versions that you need to work with, right? But the truth is, every of those versions work with a particular feature, right? So imagine you're building an application with version 5, for instance, and you want to run that application successfully. You need to make sure that every time you're running it, you use version 5, right? Now, on my system, if you look at the bottom side, you'll see that my Python version is 3.7, okay? I can have multiple Python versions on my system, and I'm able to use them accordingly. But in this lesson, we're going to create a virtual environment. The virtual environment just allows us to manage our projects so that when other programmers want to run our code, they can open that environment and install the environment the way it is, and things will work like they expect. To create a virtual environment, it's pretty simple. But if you have any question about virtual environments, you can just Google it or check our YouTube channel or our course library. You'll be able to see lots of courses that tackles that. So now let's dive into it. To create my Django application, like I said, we need to create virtual environments, right? And to create virtual environments, let me just make this wider. So let's play a bit with our terminal. Now, terminal is just where you run some commands. Like, you could do so many things here. It's a way to run some application or to run some command to either perform some things on the file in your system. And pretty much we can even check where we are, right, on this very, like, where is this directory. For us to do that, we can just say ls. And on Windows, you can say dir, which is directory, right? So the thing is, I am working on Linux, so it might be quite different from your own command line, right? So while mine is ls, yours can be dir on Windows. Now, once you do this, the next thing you want to understand is where are you exactly? So we want to go into the file. We want to go into this very folder, the folder that we created, which is Django project. Let me see if it listed it. Django project. Yes. Now, for us to navigate into this Django project, we need to cd into it. So we can just say cd Django project. So right now, we are in the Django project folder. If I say ls, you will see that the only thing we see is the README file, which we have into it. So pretty cool, right? We are in the folder and we're ready to work. Another optional way you can use is just come to File, right, and go to Open Project. You can go to Open Project, then navigate to the folder that you want to open, and then just go ahead and open it. But as programmer, sometimes we want to run away from this navigation and get used to our command line. Like I said, if you have any question, do just ask on the comment section. Okay. So for us to create a virtual environment, right, if I run Python v, I think it has to be Python right? So you can see running Python v shows me the default Python version that comes with Mac device, which is Python 2.7, even though I've been working with Python 3, right? So we can run that again. And so right now, what you're seeing right now is I'm in Python shell. So in other words, I could do 2 times, let me say 2 times 4, I could get 8. So what you've been seeing in IDLE that we were using the other time, in the other lesson, is what you are seeing right now. But let's just exit. Right. Okay, so cool. So what we need to do right now really is we need to create an environment so that we can stack everything into it. To create environment, you use the command line, virtual env. Then you declare the name you want, the folder that you want to store your Python environment. So I'm going to use period, then env, right? I'm using the period so that my Git version control won't be able to push it. If you want to learn about Git, you can also check that on our course library as well. Okay, now if you check our folder, you will still not see anything, and the reason is because it's loading. Now you can see that we have our .env folder created for us, and if we check inside, we're going to see a couple of Python libraries. So this is cool. Now that we have this running, the next question we need to ask ourselves is how do we install Django, right? And for us to install Django, we need to activate this virtual environment. So to activate virtual environments, I'm just going to say source .env, which means I'm saying source. Source is like a keyword that allows you to reference the env or the whatever activation you want to do here. So we're just calling the keyword source. Then we are going to be referencing this very folder, which is .env. Then /, Let's open this so that you can see. We're going to reference bin, bin. Okay, sorry, I think I need to come here, bin. Then inside the bin, we want to call the activate. We want to activate this. We want to activate Python. So say activate. So if you're a Windows user, you do not need this keyword really. Just type in this, your file, your folder name, and just use the word activate. So if I was to be doing this on Windows, I'll just type this exact thing and ignore the source. Okay, let's see. Now you can see practically we have our virtual environment activated, right? So if I do Python, you can see right now I have Python 3.7, which is really cool. So I'm going to exit this. All right. Now we have our Python really set up. Everything is set up. So what you're going to be doing right now is whatever you're installing is going to be living in this folder. Everything you're going to be installing going forward. So instead of it being in your random root folder on your system, is going to be here. And that's the reason why you can create multiple applications without them conflicting with each other. So imagine I download a plugin that works for this, our employee directory, and I'm not supposed to have it on another app. If you don't create folder like this, right, it's going to conflict. So what we're doing right now is we're creating our environment specific to this project. So whatever project we create or whatever folder elsewhere we create, next time it won't be affected by this. That's the essence of this environment. Okay, now let's create, we need to then install a Django. Now there's a command which is called pip. So pip allows us to install several things. It came with this packages that we install here. So we can then say pip install, call the install. What we want to install is Django. Just run it and it's going to perform all the magic. Now this might take a little time, but trust me, Python is going to try as much as it can to optimize the process. Now that Python is done installing your Django, it is time to put it to use. So let us create our Django project. And for us to create Django project, we need to say Django, then admin, start project. Then we call it main. You can see that we have the main folder here. And let's see what this will generate for us in our project. If I enter, and we should have something here. I think it's still loading. Yes. So you can see the main. And if you open it, let's see the main. You can see that the main is similar to the file structure that we have here. Okay. Now, the next thing we need to do is to create our employee app. For us to create employee app, so you need to then say python manage.py, which means you're saying manage.py. This is what you're going to be using to execute your program almost every time. Well, let's put it into use. So we're going to say python manage.py. Then we want to start app employee. Employee, I think that's correct. If we enter it, we should be able to see another folder here. Let us do ls and see what we have. ls. So we have the main. So I think something isn't right. Okay, so the reason why we're unable to create that is we need to enter this very folder as well. right? So you can just cd into it, cd main. Okay, so now let's run the start employee again. That should work. And of course, there's no error message, which means it works. If we do ls now, you can see that we have the employee folder in it, which is very cool. So you can see we have the employee folder. Nice. Now that we have all of this, a couple of things we need to also put into consideration. We are going to really walk through all of this folder. But one thing to understand is this is your main application, right? Which is where your settings will stay and your URL config. And the application really, it's more like where our data will be declared and where we're going to write our views. Another thing we need to do is we need to create a template, right? A template folder is where our templates will reside. So let's create a template folder. If you look at our structure here, you can see that we have the template folder inside of the employee app. So I'm just going to go ahead and create a new directory and just call it templates. Okay. Now in the template as well, we can create a subfolder called employee. All right, this is cool. So if you look at what we have right now, we're already having something similar to our structure here. So if you check right now, let's say you have the main application, and this is the employee. In the employee, we have the inits, which is what you can see here, the admin, and all of those. We're going to be working through these folders one after the other. Now, talking about CRUD, the first thing we would work with is the create, or we can even work with the views. Like we want to display our web, want to display the actual information to the user. And to do that, there are a couple of things we need to do. But before we even start, let us get our app working. Like, let's make things work right now. Because we install the app, Django isn't really aware that this very app exists. So what we need to do is to tell Django that we just installed an app. Please just help us to add it. And let's see where we can do that. We can do that in the installed app. Yes. So here we can just come here. In fact, we can leave a comment and just say app. I'm just going to bring this here. So we want to tell it that we just installed the employee app. You can reference it like this, .app.employee config. You can also add our comma there. If you want to see these that we've written, if you come to the employee app and you come to the app, right? Django isn't really aware of that template as well. So one thing that we can do to make Django aware of our templates is we can go to where we have templates. And in this folder, we can just say base dir, that's your base directory. This has to be a string. No, not a string. We reference the base directory. Then we call the /, then you should always look for the templates. You can say templates. So what Django is going to do is, for every time it's looking for any HTML file, it's going to look for it inside of template folders. Pretty much cool. Now that we've done all of this, right, the next thing we need to do is we need to run migration. So we need to create a database table. Whenever you hear the word migration, you're just saying create database table. So I'm just going to say Python manage.py migrate. And Python is going to do all the migration, and at the end, it's going to create a database for me. Let's see, the database is going to create. As you can see, we have a new DB SQLite. Perfect. Now that we have database running, it means that it's possible for us to run our application, right? So to run our application, there's a command line for that. So you can just say Python manage.py. You can see that we reference this manage.py every time. That is what we use to invoke a program. So we can just say run server, and this should run a server for us. Just going to go ahead and close this. Okay, so a server is now running on port 127. What you can see right here is we could actually visit this URL, and we should see our first application running. If you like this video, subscribe to our YouTube channel and follow us on all our social media handles so that you can be notified each time we release a new tip. Until next time, I'll see you in the next one.